2022. We're just returning from executive session into the public session. We always start our public session meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our first order is public announcements. Does anybody have any public announcements? Yes, Mary.
Good evening, Mary Maslowski, Town Clerk for the record. I just wanted to give you all a little bit of an election update and friendly reminders as to voting. So the clerk's office has been diligently sending out the vote by mail ballots. We have sent out about 2,600 already. We have another 500 or 600 that are going out tomorrow, and we probably will have another 200 or 300 to go out by the end of this week. So if people are still looking for vote by mail ballots, they can certainly reach out to the office and either mail us an application or come in and fill one out. A reminder, the election is the day after the holiday weekend, so it is September 6th. All voting on election day in person, for precincts 2, precinct 3, which is a change, precinct 4, 5, 6, 8, and 8A will be done at the senior center. Precinct 1 will still be voting at the church on 6A, and precinct 7 will still be at Kingsway. If anyone has any questions about their precinct or their polling location, they are welcome to call my office at the main number. We are happy to look it up for you and to make sure that you know where you're going to vote on election day. We are also going to have in-person early voting, which is mandated by the state. It starts August 27th, which is a Saturday. It will start here in this building. It will be held in this room, Saturday from 10 to 4. That is also the last day for people to register to vote for the September primary. So the clerk's office will be holding a session open until 5 p.m. here that day for anybody who needs to register to vote for that election. And then the early voting schedule will continue the following week. That week, we will skip Sunday. We will be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. For in-person early voting. And then we will reconvene on Tuesday the 6th at the polling locations for in-person voting. So I just wanted to give that friendly reminder. Notices have been sent out to those people in precinct 3 who have been moved from voting here at Town Hall to the senior center. But if anybody has any questions, we are welcome to answer them, and please feel free to give us a call.
Thank you, Mary. Just to recap, and I like to make things simple for people so they don't have to remember all the precinct numbers if need be. So everybody except 1 and 7.
Correct.
1 being the Congregational Church on 6A, and 7 being Kingsway.
Correct.
Everybody else is voting at the senior center.
Correct.
Nobody's going to be voting at the Board of Realtors office.
Correct.
And nobody's going to be voting here except
for in-person early voting.
for in-person early voting.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
All right, beautiful.
The caveat to that is just that there were changes to the precincts. So somebody who used to be in precinct 5 might now be in precinct 4. So if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to call us. We can look up your information and make sure that you're aware of where you need to go to vote.
Okay, and if somebody were to get a mail-in voting and didn't, what's the deadline for getting that vote?
That ballot back to our office?
The town, yes.
It needs to be postmarked by election day, close of business.
Postmarked by election day.
Correct. We would obviously prefer if it arrives ahead of time because it's much easier for us to deal with them on election day than it is for us to count them after the fact. But the state law has allowed for them to be postmarked and for us to receive them.
Okay. And one last point, even if somebody were to get a mail-in ballot and they decided to vote in person, and again, assuming they're not going to do anything with that ballot, they're just going to leave it on the kitchen table in perpetuity, they can still come and vote in person,
They
correct?
can still come and vote in person as long as they have not returned their ballot to us.
Okay,
The rules have changed this year so that if a ballot has been returned and we have accepted it, which means it comes into our office, we stamp it, we put it into the system, it looks like it's sealed, it has a signature on the ballot envelope. As soon as we check that into the system, that means it's now cast.
correct.
So once that happens, you can no longer ask for another ballot. If they have not returned a ballot to our office, then yes, they can come and vote in person.
I only bring that up because I've heard people say that they're getting the mail-in ballot for backup in case something were to happen with COVID or something like that, you know? They
So
would like to have that
I
option.
understand that. The mail-in ballots do cost the town quite a bit of money in labor and in postage to mail them out. So hopefully people that are requesting them really need them. Would like to think that we're not going to have another outbreak of COVID right at election day, but if people need them, we're happy to send them out. People can also, like I said, come anytime during the week for in-person early voting here. And if people are going to be absent, they can come and vote at the clerk's counter. We do have the ballots in hand, so they can now come in anytime if they need to. If they are not available on election day, they would fill out an absentee ballot request and they can vote in person at the counter. We had a few people do it today.
Oh, thank you very much
You're
for the
welcome.
update. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public announcements by anybody? Seeing none, we'll go to public. Who? Yes,
Hi, sorry.
go ahead.
My name is Dawn Roche. I've been a
Yeah, we
Yarmouth.
are, yeah, and you're gonna make an announcement. I think it's something that was in the information packet, but go ahead.
Yeah, oh, shall I wait?
No, go ahead.
Okay,
You're on.
so I'm here. I've been a resident of Yarmouth for 26 years. I'm on the CAPE organization called Parents Supporting Parents. I'm also a co-facilitator for Learn to Cope at the Yarmouth Police Department. More importantly, I'm a mother of a son lost to fentanyl here in Yarmouth. So every year on August 31st at Smugglers Beach for the last 19, 20, 21, so this will be my 4th year hosting it. I do an international overdose awareness event at Smugglers Beach, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, August 31st. And it's a day where we come together to remember our loved ones. There will be resource tables there. There will be a guest speaker. His name is Charles King. He started using marijuana and drinking alcohol at age 5. He's now in recovery. So he is an amazing guest speaker. I have the support of Yarmouth Police, Yarmouth Fire, a few other police departments on the Cape. I have purple ribbons on every police cruiser in Yarmouth, every fire truck, also now an ambulance. So I welcome you all. And I also asked, let me just back up for a second. I also asked parents who have lost somebody if they could bring a large photo of their loved one so that we can say their name and remember them so that they're never forgotten.
Thank you very much. There is a notice. I'm glad you came to the podium to make people aware of that. Anyone who has seen the packet online, there is a notice in there for International Overdose Awareness Day. Smugglers Beach, Wednesday, August 31st, 5:30 p.m. And it talks a little bit about the speaker in the program. So thank you very much for that.
Can I just add that I
Sure.
did place the purple flags on the town hall lawn. All 44 flags represent a Yarmouth resident lost to an overdose since 2015 when my son really started to struggle. So I will take those the morning of the 31st and I will put them on Smugglers Beach as part of our evening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Curtis Sears.
Somebody just sent me a text and said they can't hear this from home.
We did have some problems earlier.
Just as I walked in the door, they sent it to me.
When we were in executive session, that we were actually about 15 or 20 minutes late because of problems that we had with the
Yeah.
audio.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, I'd like to comment. I'm just checking my phone. I'm flooded with text messages from folks saying they can't hear us at all.
Can't hear us, yeah. So we apparently back to the same problem we had earlier.
Yep. Yep.
Can we redo it? Start over?
Well, we just need to make sure that the folks in the studio are working on the problem right now. Can, Bill, you go back there and make sure that we're getting flooded with text messages from residents of Yarmouth complaining that they can't hear?
I wonder how long that's been the case.
Um,
I hope they heard the voting announcement, but maybe not.
That's when she was speaking is when I got the text.
yeah,
Doesn't that make your day?
yeah. Yeah, when I get regular texts from my mom saying she can't hear.
record on CDM or whatever, Smith and Mr. Young in particular. That's gone on way too long, of course, and I don't know why we pick up a person who was not of much help to us back 11 years ago, and we still, and after he was jettisoned, as far as I know, by Harwich and maybe even Dennis, and we pick up what kind of is left over on the floor, so to speak. The same thing goes for, let's say, the drive-in committee. And if that's the consultant who suggested that we put in a boardwalk there, I mean, honestly, not only is that not going to bring in any revenue, but will require maintenance service and expenditures again. We consultants are very often just like that. That's what they don't care how much money something will cost or anything. They just had these fancy ideas in their head, and our people tend to buy them. So I hope that in the future, the people who get a project to do will, as I said, if there's a committee or one will be formed, that they do their own research. And that's, if with the town sealed committee, for example, I guess there's one being formed right now. I suggest for an opener to get in touch with Winker or some such similar entity just for openers.
Okay, thank you, Vita. Anyone else for public comment?
Joe Glenn has his hand up.
Who?
Joe Glenn has a hand up on Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom. Are we gonna be able to hear him? Joe Glenn, can you hear us?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So just to update for your guys, I did hear most of the clerk's comments, and I had turned my volume down with when Don Roach spoke because I thought I would be up next. So I don't know when it went out, but I did hear most of the clerk's comments. And for Mark Forrest, it's not raining out here yet. But just for the suggestion for the clerk, and thank you, because I was going to bring that up. But just in case other people obviously at home couldn't hear that. But if we can get that on the website, I had been speaking with many candidates, and different towns are having different early voting locations. But if you have candidates for different positions, they want to inform their people that are going to early vote properly. So if we can get it on the website, that would be great. And I also wanted to mention in regards to Don Roach's comments, and for your edification, the Yarmouth Substance Awareness Committee has their social networking, Facebook and website up. I think you'll all be very impressed with the amount of professionalism that's on the steering committee. Don's there, and the director of health is there, and just so many incredible qualified people. My only thing is we always deal with acronyms in the military, and I'm still ramping up with all the different acronyms, but these people are just so knowledgeable, and it's a real asset to the community, and hopefully they can, the Yarmouth Substance Awareness Committee can get in front of you again to let you know of the work that they're doing, because it really is a great group of people, and it's going to help with awareness and education. And I want to support Dawn's event and try to get as many people to go out, and not just people who have been affected personally, because we've all been affected in our community by all of the problems with substance abuse, and it impacts all of us, as the old saying goes, for who the bell tolls for thee. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'll chat in when the volume comes back up, so that whoever's running the thing will know.
Thank you, Joe. It's much appreciated. I'm glad to see that you've been reading a little bit and have increased your literacy awareness. That quote, "For whom the bell tolls," comes from a 17th century poem by a preacher actually named John Donne. And he says, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." It starts off by saying, "No man is an island." That quote in that.
I knew
For whom the bell tolls.
you'd know better than me,
And
Mr.
Ernest
Chairman.
Hemingway, that's where he got the title for his novel, "For Whom the Bell Tolls." No charge, Joe.
Thank you. Hey, and Mr. Chairman, just one more thing, because I didn't have the opportunity to congratulate you and Dorcas. And I noted that Dorcas immediately recognized West Yarmouth in representing the whole town, which I think you all do. So thank you very much for that, and congratulations to you both.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Anyone else on public comment? No? All right. So our first item on the agenda is Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance presentation. If people want to come forward, you can come to the front table. That would probably be the best, most comfortable place for you. You can stand at the podium if you wish, but I think the front table would be better. Why don't you introduce yourselves for the record, and then just tell us in general what your presentations is going to entail, and then go through it.
Great. Okay. Hi, my name is Doreen Leggett with, well, I'm the community journalist or communications person with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance. And I have a board member, Andy Baylor, with me. He's a Yarmouth resident. He's been on our board for 16 years and has been in the fisheries for most of his life. And at the end of my presentation, I just thought maybe he could say a few words, if that's possible. I feel like I'm in an echo chamber. I don't know if it's the
No, I
microphone.
can hear a little bit of that echo. I don't know why.
Feels like I'm on, maybe I'm underwater. It's like the whole fisheries theme. Not sure. Should I back up?
I mean, usually we have the opposite problem of people speaking softly and not getting up near the microphone, but just push it a little bit away from you and see
I
if
can
that helps.
stand up straight too. Now, is that better? Not that anyone
Is it?
can hear me in
Yeah,
the
okay.
wider Yarmouth community, but so some of you might be familiar with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance, but for some of you who might not be, I'm just going to run through who we are rather quickly. The Fishermen's Alliance was started in 1991 by a group of fishermen who were worried the Cape's small boat fleets would disappear if managers didn't start paying more attention to the environment and sustainable fishing. 30 years later, we just had our 30th anniversary last year. Our belief is much the same, and we take our lead from fishermen members and are involved in advocacy, research, education, and policy to make sure local fisheries are not just a vital part of the Cape's past and present, but also its future. And that is why we partnered with the State Division of Marine Fisheries and UMass Boston's Urban Harbors Institute on port by port profiles and analysis of the Massachusetts commercial fishery, which was published last year. The report provides an overview of commercial fishing in Massachusetts and for the first time describes conditions in each municipality with a commercial home port, which is basically every single town on the Cape. The report is built around survey results from harbor masters and fishermen, as well as state landings data, and it highlights both the important role that commercial fishing plays in the state's economy, as well as the access and infrastructure challenges that limit the industry's current operations, as well as its growth. Our visit tonight is part of an effort by us and DMF to visit every town that has a commercial port to elevate the awareness and fisheries profiles everywhere. One of the reasons why the state published the report is because many people don't understand the enormous economic value commercial fisheries have. Last year, our state of Massachusetts, obviously, commercial fisheries were valued at 802 million ex-vessel. That's 802 million ex-vessel, meaning the total amount fishermen were paid for their catch, all species, before the harvest was resold in markets or restaurants. Just for comparison, that's more than the value of all the agricultural crops in South Carolina and about the same as the value of all of Alabama's crops. And our fisheries are only a few million less than the value of tobacco grown across the entire country. And seafood is obviously much, much healthier for you than tobacco. The Cape is a huge contributor to the state's numbers. We have many small ports, but added together, they exceed the value of Gloucester by 20 million. So that's 73 million on the Cape versus 53 million for Gloucester. And those numbers are like a few years old. They haven't been tallied recently. So those numbers have grown since then. And as you probably know, Gloucester is the second most valuable port in Massachusetts, followed only by New Bedford. And New Bedford is the most valuable port in the country. The Cape is also the only spot where all the towns still have a commercial fishing industry. Some ports off Cape, such as Weymouth and Quincy, no longer do. Yarmouth is one of the few Cape towns that saw ex-vessel revenues decline in the last few years, although not by much, just a small amount. Yarmouth has a successful aquaculture industry, which you guys know, and also has a strong striped bass and conch fisheries. There had been a decline in the bass fishery, but stricter regulations were put in place, so values are expected to increase in the coming years, so those numbers might bump up again. I did hear that the Bass River Farmers Market was one of the first farmers markets on the Cape to actually happily allow commercial fishermen to come in and do direct sales of scallops, so that is obviously important. I just wanted to go over some details in the Yarmouth port profile, which I know that you have. I don't know if it's on the screen, but these numbers are from 2018, so before COVID. Just to give you an idea, there's 8 permanent harvests with the Yarmouth address, 41 vessels with the Yarmouth home port, 1,929 trips landed in Yarmouth, 269 active permanent harvesters landing in Yarmouth, and 24 active dealers purchasing in Yarmouth, which those are pretty good numbers. A lot of the increase in the state numbers has to do with sea scallops and also lobster and summer flounder, who saw values increase. Those changes required fishermen being nimble and smart, and they changed up their business plans to take advantage of direct sales, which I mentioned. Fisheries will change over the years, and fishermen will target different species depending on what is more plentiful. And fishermen can capitalize on those changes as long as working waterfronts and the infrastructure is protected. In Yarmouth, there are opportunities for black sea bass and also for tuna, as those fisheries for different reasons may get stronger in the coming years. Once infrastructure is lost, it is difficult, if not impossible, to get it back. And that loss will reverberate throughout the entire community, because what fishermen make comes back in fuel and insurance, and it comes back in bread. It stays in the community. As one of my colleagues says, the multiplier effect of these figures is enormous and phenomenal, and it creates a year-round community of people who are blue, who respect the environment, who try and hold our towns together. These are sophisticated, independent, entrepreneurial spirits with 6- and 7-figure incomes. They're important members of the community. There are a variety of ways towns can support the commercial fisheries. For instance, Chatham, Harwich, Provincetown, and Sandwich dedicate berthing spaces and other facilities to commercial fishing. And also strengthening the fleet, Harwich and Chatham also have reduced fees for commercial vessels, as do Orleans, Eastham, and Provincetown. There are other things that need to be protected as well. Perhaps a fisherman needs to store gear on their property or at his or her residence, and that is a protected use in Orleans. So there's different ways that you can support the fisheries. As communities work to balance competing uses for the waterfronts, and they have to come up against challenges such as dredging and parking, decision makers, which would be you all, can help ensure that the needs of the fishing communities are met. Those who filled out the survey in Yarmouth mentioned the need for dredging, additional parking, pier upgrades, and expensive dock space. The Fishermen's Alliance is willing to help the town and can help with letters of support. For grant funding, we want to let you know we are also working with the towns, the county, and state on another need documented in the study, which is dredging. Senator Sear was able to get a $75,000 amendment into the budget that would provide research funds for winter flounder to see when they're spawning, and that would widen the dredging window, which is now based on outdated information. And I know that Selectman Forrest knows a lot about dredging, and the Fishermen's Alliance has worked with him at the county level. So we thank him for that. no, I that ran through that pretty quickly, but I was hoping that Mr. Baylor could say so.
If I could just make a point of information, I'm getting text messages now saying that the audio at home is working,
Perfect.
Mr. Chairman.
Just in time.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andy Baylor, and I will review a couple things that Doreen was talking about, but a little about me just for a moment. I am a Yarmouth resident for over 40 years. I live in Yarmouthport. I also own Yarmouth Oyster Farms down in Great Island for 26 years and have been a board member for 16 years on the Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance. In the old days, we were called the Hook Fishermen's Association. And I have actively taken a large, role in the fishing industry because whether I'm an advocate or on the water, I just feel it's such a part of our history and tradition on Cape Cod. That's what's attracted me to Cape Cod, and that's why I continue to be a part of it. And I think everybody in this room and just enjoys what Cape Cod has to offer. And that's why it's so important that we always keep an eye on what's available for the future fishermen and the present fishermen to pursue these livelihoods. And that's the difficult part on the waterfront because we see waterfront disappearing. So the part of this whole reason about this conversation is the port to port is just to keep an eye on it, keep aware when you see things come up, is that in the future, there may be another generation that may really desire to move forward into the fishing industry. We want them to be able to see that happen in reality. But if there's no place to launch the boat or no mooring for them or no dockage, those are the important things. And you may hear, okay, so certain fisheries aren't making as much money they are now. We are in such a flux in our economic businesses from one day to the next. You may have all the DY high school kids will go into a fishing business in the next 10 years. We want them to realize this. It can be a very valuable business for them. So this is what it is. It's just to bring it to the community to say, help protect the tradition, help protect the culture of Yarmouth and Cape Cod. And that's where we all come in together. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I know that that's why we all come here. We want to see that. We want to see that waterway continue to be prosperous.
So, thank you very much. I'm going to go for questions and comments to the board, if that's okay with you folks. We're going to start with Mark Forrest, who goes back to congressional work he did with Congressman Studs, who is very, very popular congressman with the fishermen
Absolutely.
throughout the South Shore. And so, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to say it's great to see you, Doreen and Andy here. In the interest of full disclosure, I've worked with this organization from its inception and have been an incredibly strong supporter of it. I've had the pleasure of working for two congressmen who also strongly supported the work of the Alliance, and that's Congressman Studs and Congressman Delahunt. Their advice and guidance on matters of policy actually affected policy in Washington, D.C., and still does. This is an organization that does an incredibly productive and positive job fighting for the interests of what I call the small boat fishermen. Within the industry, there are those larger fleets with bigger boats that are often engaged in practices in support certain fisheries policies that sometimes work against the inshore fleet. And so these are the folks, to the extent that we have an inshore fishing fleet still left here in Massachusetts and actually on the East Coast, this organization has had a great deal to do with keeping our inshore fishing industry alive and still thriving in our communities. Now, when I work with the congressman, oftentimes I would be using Doreen's speech, and that is reminding local communities of the importance of local infrastructure, the dredging, the dockage facilities. In many communities that have received federal funds for this infrastructure, they're obligated almost by the condition of the grant or by law to maintain access for commercial fishermen. But in those communities that don't have those funds, that aren't a designated federally authorized channel. It really relies on the local communities to make sure that that infrastructure, the port infrastructure, is there. And the good thing is that historically in Yarmouth, we've had a lot of support for our fishing community. I remember, a lot of my friends, when they got out of high school, they made their living with a pickup truck, a clam rake, and some framing tools in the back. Fishing has always been an important part of our community. And my hope is that we'll have a chance to talk more as we think about economic development in Yarmouth, as we plan and look ahead. Where might there be some future opportunities in Yarmouth? But I agree with you wholeheartedly about the importance of our infrastructure. As a county commissioner, one of the things that I do is I play a very active role in supporting the county dredge. They have a very robust schedule coming up for this fall. And as a county commissioner, I've been pressing our county officials to make sure that they visit Yarmouth this fall. And I've been reminding our friends in the federal government, state government, that they need to act positively on permits to let that work go forward. Because sometimes you can want to do something, you can support the infrastructure for it, but sometimes there are regulatory issues getting in the way. And I think it's terrific that you folks also play an important role in helping partner with communities that are trying to get projects funded and permitted. So the work that you do is just amazing, and thank you so much for doing it. And thanks for being here, just to remind folks of the importance of our fishing industry. It's still important here on Cape Cod.
Absolutely. We appreciate those comments. Those are great. Thank you.
Dan?
No, just to follow up on that, I really appreciate this information. It's not information I would come by normally. I'm not a fisherman. I don't even enjoy it. However, I know many people do, and I know it's a deep part of the Cape history. So I really appreciate learning about it and learning about the people who do the work. So thank you for this. I appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully being of assistance in the future.
Great. Do you eat local fish?
I just don't eat fish.
No fish at all? Shellfish? Nothing? Wow.
Still working on them.
Yeah.
I am familiar with your organization, and I think you do fabulous work,
Thank you.
and it's vitally important. I think that fishing is deeply ingrained in the history of our state here and should continue to be so. And as you're saying, for the future generations, they should have that opportunity. And I certainly, from my role here, will be helping in any way I can to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter?
And one last
Go
thing,
ahead.
is there a way, this is a beautiful presentation that, we're privy to, but nobody else is. Is there a way we can get this, a link to this on the website or?
We could actually, as a prelude to that, give them the web information so they can, it's on the bottom of the first page. There's a website is info@CapeCodFishermenPlural.org. Is that the best place for people to get more information about this?
Yes, and we did send a link to the entire port study if people wanted to look at other towns and read the port study. It's lengthy, but I can send that
This
again.
is in the packet, isn't it? That's online, this material?
Yes.
So anybody that wants to get this handout as to what was discussed tonight can access it through the agenda packet, which is online. And we could, if the board feels that they wanted to go beyond that, we could actually perhaps post this separately as a
I think it'll be a
separate
great
item.
idea, Mr.
I
Chairman.
think it would be very good to post this separately.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Peter?
I come from a family of fishermen.
That's great.
Some in Maine and some here on the Cape.
What fishery?
Lobster.
Lobster fishery. Great.
My uncle did it from the 40s through the late 60s
On the Cape?
on the Cape. Yeah,
Great.
we've done South Street. My questions come more to, I did like your presentation, and I'm not doing it, but I'm reading your paper here. It says your needs, which are important. It says dredge Bass River annually, the mouth, where do you want it dredged? Where does it need to be dredged? I know at low tide a couple of years ago, you could walk across the mouth between the jetties. It was about 4 feet deep.
The, these answers actually are from the harbor master and the fishermen in town.
Yeah.
I don't know if your natural resources,
Happens to be here.
he,
He's here.
if he was here a couple years ago, he would have helped fill out the study.
I wasn't, my predecessor was here, Carl Von Hohen, you probably spoke to.
Yeah.
But I thank you for coming and giving this report, and really look forward to any partnerships that the town might be willing to engage with your alliance. And as I look through, these goals look familiar. That's why I had said to Mr. Rittenhour before coming in here, well, we shared a lot of the same goals. So the fact that he spoke to Carl makes perfect sense. Dredging anywhere within our comprehensive dredge permit is important, but particularly Bass River. And we're looking to do that hopefully this fall, pending the federal permits. Our state permits, the 10-year permits had expired, and there's been a holdup with the federal permits. The state permits extended due to 2 different COVID acts that extended them automatically to 2026, but the federal permit did not. So we're trying to push forward and get the federal permit renewed. And the annual dredging of Bass River that Carl was referring to was more than likely maintenance dredging at the mouth, the approach channel, and the entrance channel. However, the project that kind of went on hold 2 years ago when we still had permits was everything that we have permitted in Bass River, which was approach channel, entrance channel, and all the way up just north of the Route 28 bridge to where the private channel is going into Bass River Marina. That's what we have permitted in our plan. And that's what was going to be done 3 years ago, but the county dredge had some mechanical difficulties and couldn't get to us. And then last year there was permit questions. So the hope is that we get permitted this fall in time to conduct that project. If not, the issue we run into is time of year restrictions with different species spawning in the spring. So that's why I was very interested in hearing your reevaluation of the winter flounder status and how that affects our time of year windows.
Yeah, that study I think is already started, so hopefully it will finish and we'll be able to
Yeah.
extend those.
The last time I remember Bass River being extensively dredged was 1955, 1956. And they put the spoils up on the beaches on either side of the river. To me, it makes much more sense to put them up on either side of the river than throwing them out into the sound, which is what seems to be happening now. That's just an aside to think about. If you can get the permitting, I think it makes more sense to put it on the beaches instead of throwing it out in deeper water. Moving on from that, because limited time and stuff, upgrades to the pier. What are you thinking about looking for? And additional parking there is an issue. I mean, there's a town park there, and then the rest of it's private property.
I think what that means is so that you don't lose parking, and if additional parking, because obviously you're never going to have enough parking. That's just how things are now. But it's just to keep an eye on that, saying always additional parking or fisherman parking or fisherman trailer parking, those kinds of things. And when it talks about the pier, that's usually maintenance or that you don't lose the use of the pier. So it's kind of a general, what we support, what the goal is that your piers don't get smaller,
Okay.
or lost or disappear, or parking the same.
No, I think it's a great organization. I'm a former banker, and a couple of my customers were shellfishermen out of New Bedford, and the amount of money that they brought in and the multiplier effect is and was amazing. And I didn't realize there was so much landing in Yarmouth. It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
I have no more questions, and you know, I agree with a lot of your needs, and I very much understand them and what you need and what you're driving for.
Thank you. This has been very informative for me, based on your presentation and also Mark's comments too. I guess your basic message is really twofold. One is to educate people on the history and the culture and the tradition of fishing, and also to maintain infrastructure so that that can continue unabated. Mark and I and other board members as well have talked a lot about the history of this town and promoting that in a commercial sense, that's what the town has to offer. It has a very rich history. It has a very rich tradition. And aside from fishing, there's a lot of, from a historical point of view, there's a lot of offshoot from that with the captain's houses and a lot of the architecture, especially on the north side and down by Bass River. Historically, I think back in the day, the Cape was basically agriculture and fishing. I mean, back in the colonial times, and it's still a very, very important industry. It's still kind of the logical industry given where we live with the ocean and the rivers and so forth. So this is very educational for me. I hope to go onto your website and get some more information, but I appreciate it very much.
You can call anytime. And I did want to say the other, I don't want to be too specific about infrastructure needs, because I know the fishermen in this town and your own town employees it would be, well, you should rely on them, obviously. But I did want to say that one of the reasons why we have like reports like that is when, say, an infrastructure project comes up to town meeting and people are like, well, how important economically, because sometimes people do have to vote with their pocketbooks, how important economically is this particular industry? You'll be able to say, well, that investment is like more than worth it because of these figures, and these figures will grow with that investment. And that's just, people don't realize how important the commercial fisheries are to the blue economy. We're like the original blue economy, growing all the time. It's a year-round industry. It's just extremely important. So when these numbers come out, people will be more willing to invest in keeping that going. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. So thank you for having us.
Anyone else?
No.
I did have one more question. It's a technical one. What does the term X vessel mean in front of value? What's the significance of EX dash vessel?
That's before it's magnified in the community, before it goes to restaurants and markets. It's to the fishermen.
That's before it's distributed?
Yep, before it's sold and
The
then resold.
catches?
So the boat
You would
is
know more.
getting the boat is the X vessel. The boat that's their share.
Okay.
So, because otherwise somebody will say, oh, we caught this tuna and it's worth this after it got cut up into 1,000 pieces of sushi. That's not the X vessel. The X vessel is at the dock. That tuna was $10 a pound. That's, $3,000. Down the way, it may be worth 12,000 after they piece it out, but so that just gives you an idea. So the fishermen got this amount of money, and that's
interesting.
that's what's
yeah.
going into their pocket. And what are they're spending it. They're paying their mortgages, they're shopping,
Right.
Paying crew members.
So it's basically the value at the dock.
at the dock.
Yes.
And if I can just add, Mr. Chairman, in Yarmouth, a lot of the boats are served by trucks, from dealers. And what they'll do is they'll get a report that there's a catch, and then you'll see the trucks meeting folks down at Smuggler's Beach,
Right.
and then they'll offload there. So oftentimes, it's not like, Macmillan Pier in Provincetown or Chatham Fish Pier, where you see a lot of activity going on there on a fairly regular basis. In Yarmouth, you could be down Smugglers Beach one night, and sure enough, there'll be 3 or 4 refrigerator trucks there lined up, ready to take catch from boats that will tie up there. The only other point that I want to mention is that I think we've been very fortunate as a town. Our Natural Resources Department, Carl Von Hohn, Bill Benetti, they've done an incredible job in advocating for our fishermen constantly. And generally, their recommendations, their views have been a huge help at town meetings. So we've been blessed by having a lot of good advocacy by our own people here in town. But the industry at times is often somewhat hidden. There's a lot of activity going on that's sometimes out of view. It's not in a very visible location.
Yeah.
Something
Well,
to
thank you
think
very
about.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next is the bond signing. Bob, we're going to be signing our lives away here on behalf of the citizens of Yarmouth. Do you want to give us a brief overview? Oh, we have Ed Centeo here is going to do that. So how many $1 billion are we signing off on tonight?
We are signing off on $7.14 million.
Oh, it's just millions. We're not
billions.
talking about billions.
No,
That's
I'm
no,
so-
where do I sign?
Sorry to disappoint you. Where don't you sign is the problem. You're going to have writer's cramp tonight. What we're borrowing for is the police HVAC system upgrade. That is initially a $3 million bond, and I apologize for the typo in the very last paragraph, the first paragraph. We're borrowing $2,820,000 for the police HVAC. I transposed the 8 and the 2. The reason why we're not getting the
So
full,
it should be 282?
yes.
Okay.
Reason why we're not borrowing the full $300,000 is because we had such a large premium on the debt offering. Likewise, we're
That
borrowing,
bond premium, well, it was for 2 bonds, right?
that's correct. The 487,680 was split between the 2 bonds based on the size of the borrowing of each of the individual notes. The wastewater engineering borrowing was for $4.5 million. And after the bond premium, the amount is $4,320,000. And, looking back in July, it seems like the rates have somewhat moderated. The total investment or total interest cost is 3.12% roughly for the 30-year, 20-year police HVAC borrowing. And then for the 30-year wastewater borrowing, the interest rate on the bond was about 3.52%. So the interest rates have gone up considerably from some of the earlier borrowing, but not at a tremendous level. And we're trying to encourage everybody for wastewater and for our water efforts to use the SRF loan mechanism from now on. And you have a motion at the bottom of the page to accept this bond offering. You don't have to read the next 2 pages of information, but on the following page, the clerk of the board will sign, and then you'll all sign on several of the bond notes.
Okay, so before we get to that, you had mentioned the principal balance of the bonds being reduced as a result of large bond premiums paid to the town. And do you want to explain to the folks what the bond premium is, how that works, and how it results in a reduction of the principal sum borrowed?
Sure. Usually, and maybe I should let Peter do this, but usually what we'll get is a bond premium that's enough to pay for the borrowing. So we can pay for our bond advisors, bond counsel, the payments that we make to S&P, et cetera. So normally that would be the amount of the premium. But in this case, so that the interest rate shown on the bonds, in this case,
between 5 and 4% are shown on the bonds. What they want to do is they want to buy down those interest rates essentially by giving us a bond premium so that our principal isn't as high as it may have been. So normally we don't necessarily reduce the amount of borrowing that we're doing. We just pay for our interest costs, or we might put that into capital, so that, in case we needed to, pay for other items out of the borrowing. But in this case, the premium was so large compared to the amount that we borrowed. Peter, do you want to add anything?
No, I've never seen a bond premium quite so large as this.
Right.
Right.
Huge.
Why were we able to get such a large bond premium on this borrowing? What were the factors that resulted in that?
I don't know if psychologically, when they're offering a bond at 5%, a note that's 5% or 4%, looks like somebody's making more money on their investment as a result of that. That might have been some of why they may have put in the bond premium to actually have a higher interest rates for their investors, or make it look like they're getting a higher interest rate.
Why don't they just issue the bond at a reduced rate rather
Um,
than give the generous bond premium?
They could, yeah. But, and the bond premiums ranged based on the different bidders that came forth with offers for this. So this was the lowest total interest cost for the town of Yarmouth. And that's how we pick the winning bidder.
Okay, any questions or comments for what you just heard there? We have to,
Oh, 10 places you have to sign, I think it is.
go through quite a few documents here.
Make a motion.
So where is the initial motion?
First page, right on the first page.
Okay, it's down here. All right, so who would like to make
Mr.
that
Chairman,
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the terms and conditions of the attached document and authorize the clerk of the Board of Selectmen to sign the bond agreement on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. I further motion or move that the full vote consisting of the next 3 pages of the document that's been presented to us, that these next 3 pages with signature will be incorporated into the full board meeting minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I need a roll call vote on this, or can I just call for a board? Should I do a roll call, being that it's a bond authorization?
You don't need a roll call, just a
don't.
regular vote.
Okay. So all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so that carries unanimously by a vote of 5 present. So what is the next? So that's the vote of the Board of Selectmen that gets signed off by the clerk, correct?
Right.
That's that.
So
Top
I have to
document.
give this over to Peter, and he'll be signing that first. That's the first order of business, right? Have Peter sign that, certifying the vote we just took.
And we were all given pens, so I assume it has to be signed in black.
Want a blue pen?
No, I have a blue pen, but I didn't know whether it was supposed to be signed in black or not. I got black and black.
I tried to get them to use DocuSign.
I would try a blue pen for something like that.
Yes.
So you got that, right? Now, we don't have any more motions. We just got to execute the actual bond documents.
Correct.
All right, good. So the first one, I'm going to start with actually myself.
Is it out of order again?
And then we can see where the signatures line up.
Right there?
Should we be using a blue pen? Because mine's black.
No, this is black. Well, they gave us all black pens, so I signed with black.
The color is not critical.
No?
We
Okay.
we just want to make sure everyone had a pen that was ready to roll. We appreciate the board taking the time to go through these and sign
Well,
these now.
This
as
is,
opposed to
this
so
is
many
critically
signatures.
important. We can't just circulate these like we normally do, because if you get one signature that's missing or something, you're gonna have a problem.
Someone could lose their life savings.
So you could differentiate.
And we have to send it off tomorrow morning. So we do appreciate your
That's kind of changed.
efforts here.
A notary. Always have my blue pen going.
While the board's signing, I know that we didn't have Mr. Centio at our last meeting, but I do want to publicly acknowledge his efforts, which I gargantuan, working with all of the bond rating agencies, putting the town's, best financial foot forward. I worked with him, together on that project, and I was just so impressed with, the acumen in dealing with these national companies that appraise our, municipal credit risk, and with a great team here in Yarmouth. So thank you, Mr. Centio.
We do have a good team, all of the finance department. And Mr. Rittenhour and Mr. Scott. Mike, do I need to fill up your water? You going to make it through all that signing? I'll tell you, there's more and more paper every time, no matter how large.
I
these
mean, to
borrowings
kind
are.
of break the monotony while you're signing it, you can kind of dream of the number of generations it's gonna take to pay these bonds back.
Small bonds, 30 years for one set and 20 for the other.
It's kind of like sticking it to your kids.
Oh, yeah. Well, that 0% SRF, hopefully that we qualify
Yeah, the
for the
rates are
wastewater.
good.
Yes. Oh, good.
Very good.
I apologize to the public, but this is very, very necessary for us to do this way.
Out of sight that everybody sees.
Okay, your answers?
Mike's theme music.
Okay, the good news is I'm done with the first one. The bad news is there's more. So Mark, what I'm gonna do is pass this over to you.
Okay.
On all these where the red tags are, you gotta sign, and my signature's there, so it should identify
Great.
where we have to sign. Now I'm going to the second document, which looks a little bit easier. So,
Shout out if you see one that's missed.
I think Ed's gonna have pretty much everything under control. I have no doubt about that. If nothing will get missed tonight.
I'll check.
no, the first one's got the most signatures. The rest of them aren't too bad.
Otherwise, I have to face Sue Ripley in the morning, and I don't want to have to do that empty-handed without all the signatures.
Made my choice.
Okay,
The other direction.
I'm not gonna pass this to anybody. Well, yeah, start at Peter's end with that one. That's a good idea. Well, but let's keep it sequential so there's no mix-up. Okay. You want to hand, yeah, to Dorcas. Dorcas, will you give this one to Peter? Thank you.
Group number one, or
Should I sign this or just passing it down?
Did Peter sign that one?
Yes.
Yes, then you should sign. I should be on there too, right?
Let me
My
just
signature
double
should
check.
be,
Signatures there.
mine's there too? Yeah, okay.
Hey, Mike, there's one on here that you missed.
I did?
Yeah, you did.
Thanks, Mark.
Where's that, Mark?
Right here.
Quality
We're
control
way
checks.
before these tabs.
You're welcome.
Ed, you'll verify that we got all the signatures required before you depart, right? Dorcas, this is yours right here.
That one, 3 of us have signed.
So I think those guys need to sign down there.
He's got his pen poised.
Thanks.
This is yours. Your turn.
There's another one, Ed. Moving along.
Okay, I think this one is done. We'll start this one at this end as well. Give that to Peter, please.
If I didn't get it, you would have certainly picked up.
You the final signatory on that one, Dan?
No.
You're not? Okay. Just got to go down this end.
Yep.
Right.
Dorcas?
I haven't done this much signing since I bought my house.
Yeah, it's worse than a closing. And you don't even get a deed.
That's me. I'm at the very bottom.
And you're good at this, Dan. You're good at this. Are those all completed?
I can go to those 2.
Okay, so let's take a
You
look.
handed it to me. Yep. Here's another one, Ed.
Okay, so this needs Dorcas and Peter, so I'm gonna give it to Peter. Then you
That
can
one's-
sign it,
I
give it to
think
Dorcas.
You
and
can
that one
see,
should be
it
done.
looks like it's missing somebody.
Hmm?
That one doesn't look like all this.
Somebody missing? Ed?
Mark might be missing from that one.
This is the folder for that, Ed.
Dorcas missing on that one.
Thank you.
While we're going through all of this signing, just a little piece of trivia on the Jeopardy theme song. Does anyone know who composed the Jeopardy jingle? Anyone in the audience want to try? Here at present? Merv Griffin.
Oh.
Made a lot of money on
I
Jeopardy.
think he actually produced it originally, didn't he?
He's the original.
And I think he also did Wheel of Fortune.
Yep.
Oh, that's the regular stuff.
Oh, I've signed this one twice now, Ed. You got Peter, you got Dan, Mark. Maybe sure. Yeah, this one's me.
This is the regular stuff. There's one you have to sign. I think it's this one. Excuse me.
Paperclip out of there.
I think it's that one. I think that's. Go to the Roy Clark.
What am I signing?
And then the others as well, but that one's is solely for your signature.
Okay.
Are you still on the bond stuff?
Me, yes.
Yeah, okay. Just
Last but not least.
take your time. When you ran for selectman, did you know you'd have this much fun?
Glamorous.
I didn't know writer's cramp was included in the job description.
It's not usually, but.
We have other material in there that needs signature. Bob.
Couple things.
Ta-da. There you go.
Clerk's done that. Is that the only? Oh, all right.
Do we have everything we need on the bond authorizations?
Yes,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank
If-
you.
If there's anything missing, I'll catch
Yeah,
up with you later
thanks.
tonight. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Next item, selection of the police chief. Just a few introductory remarks for the benefit of the candidates and for the public. We hired a consulting firm to evaluate the three candidates that we have for the police chief's position. Lieutenant Andrew O'Malley, Lieutenant Mike Bryant, and our deputy chief as well, Kevin Lennon. In addition to that, there was interviews that our town administrator and our human resources director participated in. I don't know if our sister, were you involved in those too, Bill, those interviews? No. And then after we met in executive session and talked to the consultants, we conducted public interviews. And all three of the candidates, in my opinion, and I think the board shares this view, interviewed very, very strong. And we came away knowing that we would have a very difficult choice to make. I have no idea where the other members of the board stand with respect to their preference. We are not supposed to, at least as a quorum, discuss matters that come before the board. And I don't know, therefore, who would like to start this discussion? Would you, Peter?
I was very impressed with all three candidates. The structure of the police department is a badge that the town should wear very proudly, and the retiring chief should be very proud of all the work that he's done with all the folks that work for him. Extremely professional group, and I was duly impressed that we have three extraordinary candidates and very professional candidates for the new chief. I'm proud of all three folks.
Thank you, Dorcas.
I concur with Peter. I mean, I was very impressed with the three candidates that we had. And as I publicly thanked Frank Frederickson for his mentoring, I also would like to take the opportunity to thank Peter Carnes, because I think this goes right back to when he was chief as well, that the process started. And it speaks very highly of the police department that you are mentoring all the folks that are working there and coming up with such excellent leadership candidates. It's a tough decision, I think, because all three candidates really are excellent. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you, Dorcas. And one thing I want to mention before I pass down the line is our consultants came back with a very positive evaluation of all three candidates. They basically told us that there's some small differences between the three of them, but they ensured us that whoever was selected would be a very good and highly qualified police chief. So that's kind of a nice position for us to be in, and to know that we have such three highly qualified candidates to choose from. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I agree. First of all, with Dorcas, I wholeheartedly agree. This leadership model goes directly back to Peter Carnes. I don't remember the state of the police department before them, but I have a sense that it wasn't nearly as professional and as stellar as it has been since your leadership. And you've produced a wonderful array of leaders that have come after you, which just speaks to me of the mentoring that has taken place, not only by you, but by subsequent police chiefs, by your captains, your lieutenants and sergeants. It's amazing to me, the caliber of the leadership that we have in this department. And you all have done this town very, very proud. I'm very glad that we had a consultant, because this was a very, very hard decision. I could be comfortable with any one of the three candidates that the consultant put in front of us. And as each one of them sat at that table, I said to myself, there's our next chief. And then the next gentleman would get up and, oh, there's our next chief. And it just, it makes our job very difficult. I loved a comment that Lieutenant Bryant made. He said, you can't make a bad decision here. And he's absolutely right. We cannot make a bad decision. Unfortunately, we're asked to make the best decision out of the three candidates that we have, and that's just hard. I think Mike Bryan is wonderful. I'm thrilled that he's a part of our department. His leadership is really just amazing. He's one of the strongest police officers that I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And I'm just so grateful that he's a part of this department. He interviewed really, really well and could make a wonderful chief. Drew O'Malley is the first time I had a chance to see him was in this setting. And boy, was I impressed. For somebody who has technically less experience than the other two candidates, boy, has he made the most of it. He has gone out and prepared himself to take the next step and the next step after that. His answers were extremely strong. His preparation, the detail that he brought forth in his interview, just very, very impressive. And then Deputy Chief Lennon came in. And, you know, I'll be candid with you, right from the opening statement on, I was floored. The detail, the breadth and the depth of detail that Deputy Lennon brought to the interview, brings to the job. The fact that he has done just about every command position in the department. The answers on every single question that were put before him, but even before then, the opening statement, the summation, they were just so strong, so detailed, so comprehensive that it's just difficult to match, frankly. And so it's a horrible decision that we have to make. I want to create three positions, frankly. But we have that at some level, don't we? Because we are the beneficiaries of these three gentlemen. They bring three different styles of leadership to this department that make Yarmouth. I'm just so proud of our police department. And I work in the court system and I see other police departments regularly. And I see the mistakes that other police departments make, and Yarmouth doesn't make them because of those qualities that these gentlemen talk about hiring the right people, about the training that they give their people, about the expectations that they have of their people, really sets this department apart from others. And so, you know, when we talked about all the issues that maybe some neighboring communities experience, we don't. We don't because of the leadership of these three men. And I'm sure that goes with some of the other people that are in the department as well. But I'm prepared tonight to vote in favor of Deputy Chief Lennon as our next police chief. But by no means is that any slight or any kind of comment that I don't think the other two gentlemen can do just as fine a job. It's just that we have to pick somebody. And out of the three, I felt that his answers were truly the most complete, the most comprehensive, the most detailed, and to me, demonstrated the type of leadership that we are looking for. And so it's with great regret that to the other two candidates, but that would be my position at this point. And, I want to thank them all because this has been a real privilege for me to see the dedication that these men put into, and I'm sure it's, you know, it's a family thing. I know that because I know when they walk out the door that it's the whole family that is supporting them. So it's really, thanks and appreciation to the entire families of these three men. They're, they're really great examples of what Yarmouth produces and what our leadership produces. And much thanks to Chief Frederickson too, because I know that this didn't happen in a vacuum. But at any rate, it was a privilege for me. I hope you'll understand my decision, but I feel confident that Deputy Chief Lennon is probably the best candidate to go forward. Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me just thank our town administrator and our consultant and our HR director for all the time and energy and effort that they have put into this. I agree with everything that's been said by my colleagues on the board. This is the first time I've never wanted to single out one person. I wanted to be able to say, each one of you, you've got the job. Now you guys work it out. Because they just demonstrated to us during the interviews and throughout this entire process their professionalism, their dedication. They're part of an organization that has a very highly professional culture. That doesn't happen overnight. That takes a while to nurture, to cultivate. It's a professional culture. It's a culture of excellence in our police department. I'm glad Dorcas acknowledged also former Chief Carnes, because a lot of things happened during his administration that we can be very thankful for and are very proud of. Each of the candidates is qualified to do the job. We know that. That's been demonstrated, and that's been proven. They are all committed to serving this community and sustaining this culture of excellence and professionalism that is within the department, and that makes the Yarmouth Police Department the pride of the people of Yarmouth. This is a community that takes deep pride in our police department, and that's earned, and that support is deserved. So I can make a case to select each one of them, but that is not possible tonight. I know that home, I've got people lobbying me for each one, so it's either my mom's not going to be happy with me or my other family members aren't going to. Each one has their advocate and their candidate. So I know when I go home, I'm going to be hearing from somebody. But the reality is that each one have demonstrated to the board that they're fit for this job. I'm worried on how we sustain this excellence, how we keep each of them here with the town. When the consultants ranked each of the candidates for us, it's been said there was not a great deal in terms of differentiating them. But where there was a slight differential, it was in the deputy chief, Kevin Lennon. Now, I can literally spend the night here for the next hour, and I know you don't want to do that, but we could be here going through the virtues of each of the candidates. But that's not necessary at this point. So I know Selectman Horgan mentioned that he would support Kevin Lennon as the next police chief after Frank Frederickson retires. I'm in the same camp as well. Like I said, I could appoint any of the three, and they would do an outstanding job. But we can't appoint three. We have to appoint one. So that would be where my selection would be. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we have two leaning for Deputy Chief Kevin Lynn, and does anyone else have any other candidates in mind that they would want to support? I'm going to say something that I have mixed emotions about whether I should come forward with this or not. I'm going to support the candidate that I think the majority of the board is going to support. From a purely administrative standpoint, I can see the strength of Deputy Chief Lennon, who has experience in budgeting. He's also been the acting chief in the chief's absence. But I see some extremely special qualities in Lieutenant Bryant that are very, very hard for me to turn away from. He is a inviting face of the department. He has a wonderful personality, and he always greets people with a smile, and he's very accepting of other people. But he showed us at the interview too that he can be a very serious person, and he can make hard decisions. And he said that he showed a lot of humility, I think. And I said this to the town administrator, just in a general sense. Most of the great people I've met, the truly great special people, that's a quality that they possess. They possess humility. And there's a lot of power in that quality. I think he's the kind of person that makes everybody around him better. I think he's the consummate team player. I think he'll do anything that he feels is in the best interest of the department or in the best interest of the town of Yarmouth. And I don't think he's looking for individual recognition or glory or anything like that. And to have somebody like that in your department is just a wonderful thing. And I understand the slight edge that Deputy Chief Lennon has because he has acted in the deputy's role. But again, when Lieutenant Bryant was asked, well, what would you do? What qualities would you be looking for in a deputy chief? He said the one thing that he doesn't have on his resume, and that's budgeting experience. So he knows what his limitations are. He knows how to surround himself with the right complement of people. I just saw something in him. I've known all these candidates for a very long time, but I saw something in him at this interview that I had not seen before. He's a person of great depth, and he's a person that makes other people feel good about their role within an organization. I will support ultimately the candidate that the majority of the board supports, but this is a personal message to Lieutenant Bryant that I don't want to have be left unsaid. Dorcas, you're next.
Should, in speaking to who we feel
Yeah.
should be the candidate?
Yeah.
Well, all three candidates were excellent, and I would be impressed to have any one of you. But for me personally, there was one that rose to the top. Kevin Lennon would be my suggestion, Deputy Chief Kevin Lennon as our new police chief. I think he would do a tremendous job, and I think he'd take us forward, taking from the examples of what he's seen from the past chiefs with Peter Carnes and Frank Frederickson. And my regrets to Lieutenant O'Malley and Lieutenant Bryant that I can't select you as well. Thank you.
Peter.
I'll make it a full house, Kevin.
Okay, does somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the board appoint Kevin Lennon as the next police chief for the town of Yarmouth.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion before we vote? Yeah, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So that passes unanimously. Deputy Chief, if you are now Chief-elect, if you'd like to make a few remarks, feel free.
Yes, I'll keep it brief because my wife was watching my interview and she was texting people saying, land the plane. You're going on way too much of an introduction. I am not surprised that you had a difficult decision tonight because we do have a very great police department. It's a deep bench, as Chief Frederickson says. And that is through the hard work of Chief Carnes, Chief Almonte, and Chief Frederickson training us to take over for the next person. So I listened to your statement about the candidates, and I echo those sentiments. They're good friends of mine. They are consummate professionals, and I'm excited to take this department to the next level. So I am humbled for this opportunity to lead the department. I thank you for the opportunity. It's exciting for me. I turned 55 today, so this is a little bit of a nice birthday present. This is an exciting time for the town and for me, and for my wife and my family. So thank you for your trust. I look forward to working with everybody and continuing the legacy of the Yarmouth Police Department. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's give the folks a couple minutes to clear out, and then we're going to talk about the town administrator's evaluation.
Hard to follow that act.
Let's do another bond signing. What the hell?
So, Bob, what was your hire, when you came full-time, April?
April 5.
April 5th. So under the town administrator's contract, we are supposed to have an annual evaluation. And we're a little bit late on that. Should have been done roughly sometime in April, early May, but we've had a lot of other things going on. So what's going to happen here is, and I think we're going to get some forms to you to evaluate him in various categories. Now, under his contract, the significance of the evaluation is a number of things. First of all, he was hired on a 3-year contract. But the way we negotiated it was that if he was successfully evaluated after year 1, the contract would automatically go into year 4. In other words, there'd be a 1-year extension. And then if he was satisfactorily evaluated after year 2, the contract would go into year 5. So that is one of the issues. The second issue is if he meets his performance criteria, which we'll get to momentarily, he gets $5,000 in deferred compensation in each of the years that he passes. So he's got to get a cumulative score of 33 or better based on an evaluation form that's going to be emailed to all of you. And it goes on a scale of 1 to 4, I believe, in each of the performance categories, 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. And I have one of those forms here. And I think they'll be pretty self-explanatory, but if you have questions about them, you can either email me or call me. They deal with categories such as knowledge, productivity, decision-making, oral communication, written communication, budget/financial administration, leadership, public relations, work relations, staff development and training, and personnel practices. Those are the general categories that he gets scored upon. And the way this works is 0, you get 0. I don't know anyone that's ever gotten a 0. Would be unsatisfactory. 1 would be the equivalent of needs improvement. 2 would be the equivalent of satisfactory. 3 would be the equivalent of superior. And 4 would be the equivalent of exceptional or outstanding. And then you get those scores to me. I do 1 composite score, and then it comes into the public forum at that point. And then generally, we kind of go around the table, not in great depth, but I'm open to whatever the board wants to do. And people just make some general remarks about strengths, areas where they would like to see improvement, whatever. So I'm looking at the contract. I'm gonna kind of flip through it. Okay, I talked about the automatic extension, so upon successful review, his contract would automatically go into year 4. And then on the salary, it says increases may be made in the salary amount for subsequent years of this contract by mutual agreement. So based on the evaluation, we can talk about, in addition to the deferred compensation, whether we feel that he's entitled to any other method of compensation, and he can let us know what his expectations are or his wishes are as well. The deferred comp I talked about. So that those kick in a year 2 and 3, the deferred comp. So you didn't get it the first year, you would get it for year 2 and year 3. 4 and 5 we're silent on, because we haven't extended the contract yet. We've got to do the evaluation as a prerequisite for those extensions. I talked about the scoring, 11 categories, 0 to 4, 0 equaling unsatisfactory, 4 equaling exceptional. Score 33 or better is the magic number that he's looking for. And then it talks about annually, the board, in conjunction with the town administrator, is supposed to define goals, which we're going to talk about a little bit later when we get the town administrator items. We're a little bit late on that as well, but at least we've done that. We just haven't finalized the documents and made them public yet. Mark, I think you've done evaluations before, but you have too, Dan, haven't you? You've done the evaluation forms. So Peter, I don't know if you have.
Not here.
Not here.
I've
And-
done.
Yeah,
I've done
no,
them-
but I
done
mean
them in my
here,
pre-
and then
in my
Dorcas
previous
hasn't.
life.
And I have. So we will get those to you. What I would like to do for a timeline is if you could fill them out and then get them back to me, and you can email them to me, or you can get them to the town administrator's office and they can forward them to me. I'd like to get them by the end of this month, and then sometime in early September, do the evaluation. Is that all right with everybody? It's not a lot of work. It's just, you need a little bit of quiet time to go through it and do the evaluation. Any questions? You have any questions, Bob, or comments?
No, 3.3, that's a pretty tough bar there. Well,
33. 33 is
Yeah,
what it
it's
is.
an
It's
average.
just a raw score is what it is. But I'll tell you,
score.
I've been on the board 10 years, and in the 9 prior years of evaluation, nobody failed to meet that threshold. So we should be in pretty good shape.
No, looking forward to it. And then
Either
the
that
feedback-
or you're in trouble, one or the other. No. All right. So the ones that haven't done this, if whatever help you need, whatever advice you need, I'll be freely available to help you.
You're going to be sending us the forms, right?
Yes, you'll get them like within a day or 2, right?
That's great.
Certainly. You can do that tomorrow.
And we'll get them right out. Any other questions on that one? Okay, good. So now we're going to move on to board and committee actions. Approval of minutes of January 19th, 2021 and January 26th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to move to approve the minutes of January 19th, 2021 and January 26th, 2021.
Do I have a second? Dan, you're the second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Abstain.
Any abstentions? 1 abstention?
2 abstentions.
2 abstentions. So it passes by a 3-0, abstaining. Upcoming agenda review is next. You want to get us started on that one, Bob?
Yes, certainly. And I do have a couple of items that we've put in there since this one out.
E-
Our next
Excuse
meeting-
me. Chairman Stone,
Yes,
there's two sets of minutes.
I think he moved both.
Oh, you moved
I
both.
moved-
I'm
I
so-
moved both,
I
yes.
apologize.
I think he moved them, didn't you, Mark?
Yes.
In one motion, okay. But thank you for keeping your eye on that.
So our next meeting is August 30. We're going to do a recognition of retiree from the library. And we also have a hearing that's scheduled on the final cable license. And so we'll have Bill Solomon, our cable consultant, will be here to represent that as well. It's good to finalize that. We also have the tax rate classification hearing and the Mass DOT update on Route 28 construction. So I think it'll be a very busy night. We finally have received some of the recommendations on finalizing the CEDC committee charge, and we've updated that, follow through on that project. So that's set to be there. And we have it tentatively scheduled to do the special municipal employee designation. We don't have a firm recommendation on those yet. So that's, pending finalizing that, but it's,
Can I ask you a question on that? Are we going to do that as to particular boards or committees? Or are we going to try to do something across, generically across the board? How is that?
you want to talk about that, Bill? I think we were thinking
Sure.
of doing more than one, but not completely across the board. But what we're trying to do is not single out just this committee, just that committee, and pick the ones that are in a similar situation.
Usually the criteria is where you have a committee that has several members from different jurisdictions, where there might be conflicts in each member's mission from those jurisdictions. You sort of make the entity special municipal employee. So the RAC might be one. Other ones that have the CEDC might be another one where you have members from different committees. The Capital Budget Committee might be another one. So typically you would create that because each one of those parties coming into the committee brings a different mission, and you're stating that, there's an inherent potential conflict there.
So when you come before us, are you going to have, in addition to the classification as a special municipal employee, are we going to be naming specific committees at that time?
Yes.
Like this is going to apply to the following 4 or 5 committees? Is
Yes.
that how it's going to be done?
Yeah.
Okay,
5 positions.
that makes sense. Okay.
And we also hope to have, this was the update, the discussion of the Keys Middle School reuse is scheduled for the 30th as well. And that last meeting, we handed out the scope that consolidated the ideas from the board and the staff. So that's the basis that we hope to move forward with the draft RFP. So review that, and we'll send that out again and have that discussion on August 30.
So in that package, you should have a mission statement and then a structure in the committee, which are probably the 2 greatest policy decisions. The balance of it is how you conduct the study, but the mission statement and the structure of the committee and the focus groups would be the important aspects.
You did a memo on that, right?
Correct. There were 2. There was the original one, which was.
That was our last meeting, I think, that you
Correct.
passed that one out.
So there were one memo on the components of that type of redevelopment study, and the second memo was after that discussion, how it should be structured.
Okay. So that looks like we're pretty full. That
Busy night.
on the 30th.
Night, yeah.
The tax rate should go pretty quick, though. Classification hearing. CEDC charge shouldn't be too long. Okay, anybody have anything else on the 30th?
Could I just ask, I think Mark had mentioned this at one point, but is it possible to get just a quick update on the drought situation? Because that's just, it's such an important issue, and it's going to be 2 weeks. Hopefully, the postcards will be going out, but it's just an opportunity to continue educating our population and educating ourselves as to where we are currently.
Absolutely.
Is there any way to keep the attorney representing us on cable, to keep him brief?
Yeah, I'll work on that. That'll take a couple of weeks to work on. He's enormously experienced. He works on these cable licenses in so many communities. He's just a fountain of information. But we've had a couple of sessions, and I think everyone's pretty well briefed on where we stand, and this is just a matter of finalizing it.
I want to caution my colleagues, be careful when you ask a question.
Appreciate
His
that.
answers are
Okay.
very complete.
They're full.
Huh. Well, the problem is, though, that a lot of these answers depend on a lot of variables, and he wants to cover his
All the variables.
tracks. And
He gets paid by the variable.
but no, but legal advice really is fact sensitive. You change a couple of facts, and it's a totally different game. So they're saying, assuming this, or if this happens, and they have to really kind of advise you that way to protect their own selves. All right, so why don't we put can we put the town administrator's evaluation on for looks like the next date's the 13th. The board's gonna have till the end of August, which I think is a reasonable period of time to fill out the evaluation forms. We don't have a meeting on the 6th, so we can.
I'm
do
gonna
that.
just make a pitch.
Yeah.
Is anybody adverse to the idea of taking it up on the 30th?
There's a lot on already.
You think so?
It's a
Okay.
lot, yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. If the board wanted to do it, I'd be comfortable doing it that night.
I
But
think
if
that'd
that,
be kind of a lot, and it's important. I don't want to rush through it. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a long item.
well,
I
if we
mean,
can keep the cable attorney to like within 20 minutes or so, or a half an hour, then we can probably, the cable stuff historically has gone excessively long. I generally, I mean, it's far longer than is necessary, but it's almost like, so once we get into that, I just think if we could coach and be very focused on that discussion, I mean, I think we should be able to get through that discussion in 20 minutes at the most. But from past practice, when we've had cable as an agenda item and it should go 20 minutes, it's gone at least twice as long, maybe 3 times as long. It's just really dragged on. And it's part of it is just disciplining ourselves. It's been a while since we've talked about cable, so some folks may want to get refreshed. But I think if we had a briefing on it, the key provisions of it, and we're not making a decision, any decisions again on it, are we?
Well, it has to receive its final approval, but
Right.
It is in the same format as when we brought it in last time and discussed.
So
it.
nothing's
Everyone was in
changed.
favor. So no changes, it's just been finalized.
Yeah. I bring it up because the tax rate classification hearing typically in the past has gone maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, Ed? 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
That's all.
There you go. So, and then the Mass DOT update, that'll be the substantive part. And I think the other items are pretty routine. I'm just making a pitch. I think we can do it that night if board, the question is board members getting the survey and turning it around in that timeframe. In the past, hasn't always been an easy thing to accomplish. But I think if we set our minds to it, we could easily pull that off for the 30th.
Right.
So I just put that out there.
Right. Bill, how long do you think the Matakes discussion will be?
It's up to the board as to the mission statement and then the committee structure. Those are really the 2 policy issues that, as I said, the rest of it is standard steps you would do in a redevelopment plan.
Okay. No, I've already been cornered by a number of people and said, this is what we should do there. This is what we should do there. And they're just divergent.
Right. So it's structured to handle that. The last meeting you talked about not having people influencing those specific decisions on the committees. So those types of things happen at the focus groups, at organizations that may want a stake in it, things like that. So the structure is that the committee doesn't have a direct influence to a constituency for it. It's more like the drive-in theater where you brought in people of certain expertise. So that's the way the memo is structured. And the mission statement is sufficiently specific to sort of get a deliverable.
Given that, I think we probably could discuss the town manager stuff on the 30th. But
I don't really care. I mean,
it's up to you,
if
Mr. Chairman.
People get that stuff to me early, fine. If they don't, then I'm not going to be prepared to go forward with it. I don't mean early, I mean timely. If I'm starting to get the stuff the day before the meeting and forget it, I mean, it's not going to happen.
Right. So you'd need to get that information, what, the Friday before the meeting?
Yeah.
Calendar.
Okay. I'm game. Anybody else? Everybody else game? Friday before that meeting. So what's the date on the calendar on that one?
That would be the 26th.
The 26th. Sign me up.
That gives us 10 days. So even those of us who procrastinate have plenty of time.
There you go.
Yeah, I know in the past, it's been like pulling teeth to get them from
Oh, you're
certain
right.
people, and,
We have to- Well, let's do, if we don't get them in on time, then if it's on the agenda and it's been posted, then
we
we'll
won't have
just
to,
defer it.
we won't be able to go
Yep.
forward. Okay, anything else? So the 13th is still wide open, right?
Right, right.
Looking at the town clerk's memo, calendar, do we need to start to get ready for items for the for fall town meeting? That be something worthwhile to discuss on the 13th?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. An
Well,
update, the warrant?
The deadline for the submission of articles is September 20. So what we anticipated doing is getting the articles submitted and then coming into the Board of Selectmen.
On the 27th?
Right, to review them.
Okay.
So put that on for the 27th.
So fall town meeting articles will be on the 27th, right?
And, for public, not public comments, the notice, we should tell the public on the 30th that if they got something they want to get in, it's now or never kind of thing.
And we also published that in the newspaper, which has been published. So there's notice of that.
But I think a public announcement at the meeting, it's also a good
This meeting,
idea.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Mike, may I ask, is there any tentative layout at this point for the comprehensive plan to begin to start to bring that forward to us?
Right now, there is not, but there will be. The first thing that we're going to do is we have a department head meeting that we're working on scheduling right now to develop an action plan around the goals. And that was, I think, one of the top goals of the Board of Selectmen, the update of the comprehensive plan. So we're going to have an action plan around that item with dates, and we're going to move all of those goals. I mean, that's, I think what's great about that document, there's a very manageable number of goals, and I think folks are going to rally around them.
Not to be a negative comment, I was on the planning board in the late 1980s, and the comprehensive plan was about to be finished then. And it has not been finished since. So again, I'm sure you'll be able to knuckle down and get that done. It's extremely important, and it's been sitting for well over 30 years being unfinished.
Yeah, I think that was the plan that we were doing in-house.
Yeah, yeah.
so don't forget, we've been working on this and, we've been working with the Community Development Department and we brought it to town meeting and we were successful in receiving the funding. So this project is poised to move forward. We even have a draft RFP I sent over to them that they could evaluate. And, I'll tell you, it's a very doable process. I think, some folks are nervous when you write down on paper what you're going to do, you have to do it. But I've gone through in the past several comprehensive plan updates. One, just before, out on Martha's Vineyard very recently. And I think we can get it done. And I think we've got the horsepower, the funding, very engaged boards. There's no reason that can't be.
I didn't mean that as a criticism of you, Bob, at all.
Oh, no, I know. I just got the 3.3 there.
There you go.
We have anything else on agenda review? Let's go to individual items then. Mark.
One item. Within the past couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity to meet with some leaders in the business community about wastewater. There seems to be some interest in the gray water issue in finding a way to facilitate or create some component in our overall plan that addresses that issue. I just wanted to get out there publicly to let folks know that I've been hearing some feedback, and it's something that at some point we should probably discuss. It's probably a future and agenda item, but I just wanted to get it out there. Maybe it's more of an agenda item internally with the Water Resources Advisory Committee and town management, but there's a sense that many people in the community, this is what I'm being told, would like to see our plan incorporate some capacity to move gray water, at least in phase one. So I'm going to just make note of that and as an individual item that some in the community are looking for us to pay attention to.
Dan.
Nothing at this time.
Dorcas.
Nothing at this time.
Peter.
I think it's already been brought up, that drought, and if this continues, do we need to have some kind of action to get some folks to lay off on the water? Just something to discuss.
I think now that you brought, that's an item actually, I think we have to discuss and sort of lay some groundwork for next year. All right, because what's happening is there's a significant amount of non-compliance. All right, even on publicly owned property, and just leave it at that.
You want to put that on the 13th?
Yeah, maybe we should put that for a discussion item on the 13th, because I think there are going to be things that we may have to think about from a budgetary point of view, from a water department point of view, that are more in line with enforcing actions. There may be a requirement for irrigation systems to have permits, for example. There may be requirements for other measures to be adopted. There may be a need to have one of the town vehicles labeled as water enforcement or
I
something.
think we have to have a discussion. One of the things though, and Peter keeps reminding me of it when he says he's walking around and it's raining and all these systems are still going, is maybe where you start is some requirements for new system installations, that they have those valves that are going to shut off when it is raining, and maybe that's a starting point.
Yeah, I think those are the kinds of things that are worth some discussion. I think it would be helpful to
That's how they started with Title V septic systems. They didn't just like have everybody change things. They said, okay, from this date forward, if you're selling your home, you have to have an inspection.
Right.
That kind of approach. But go ahead.
No, I think having a discussion of all the options and how to phase them in, I think makes a great deal of sense. And I think I like your suggestion on some of these things that can easily be phased in. So as from a future date, it's either a new build or there could be some other, a substantial rebuild. This has got to be part of it, and there may be measures through the Board of Health. Some of these may very well could be Board of Health items. But I'm not saying, you know,
And I should mention that same thing irritated Dan quite a bit too.
Still does.
He frequently commented on that.
Every
Yeah.
day. My
Yeah.
clock is
Now,
ruined.
I know there was a comment earlier today that they don't like hearing what other towns are doing. Although I thought it was interesting that the other town got rid of a consultant that maybe we should take up on that, but I won't go down that road. But I do think other towns they remind us that the measure, it's serious. And I don't think for a minute anybody should think our situation isn't serious. We're in the same boat as a number of other towns that are taking serious steps. And that's the only reason why I bring it up.
Right.
But I think it speaks to the need to keep the subject on the front burner because there's some people that think that we may be doing things or taking steps that may be based on what others are doing, not based on what's needed here. But what I'm hearing from our water department is that the reduction in consumption is non-existent. That's what I heard. That's when I checked in last week.
Right.
Is there a significant, is there any reduction? It's
I don't doubt that.
non-existent.
I don't doubt that.
So,
Because I think most of the systems where there's a lot of watering are probably the irrigation systems.
yeah, well, one of the problems that we haven't talked about is that if there isn't enough volume and there isn't enough pressure, you know, it becomes a public safety issue, right? I mean, it can create problems if you get a fire, you know, getting water to put it out. So it's not like, you know, this is a discussion whether you turn the splash pad on or not. There's some serious consequences to the drought, and I'm glad you keep bringing it up, Selectman Smith. I think it's important that we find as many opportunities. And my only question would be is whether or not DPW and water might have some things for us to consider.
Oh, I would definitely involve them, absolutely, because they know, and when they were here, they were talking again about the demand has not gone down. Not all our wells are online.
Right.
and
So
I-
in the briefing, there should be coverage of that. Is the consumption line still going up? Is it flattening off? Is it going down?
And
Right.
is the water coming out of the wells still clean? Are we starting to pick up sand or anything like that?
Or salt?
Or salt, yeah.
Yeah, when I worked in the town manager's office in Provincetown, the overpumping of our wells created long-term problems. We had wells, all of Provincetown's wells were in Truro because there was no more clean water to draw from in Provincetown. So what did they do? They had to find good wells in a neighboring community, so in Truro. And when one of the big producers went down because of pollution, the other wells got pumped. And they got pumped so hard that now the aquifer is very different over here. In that part of the Cape, the aquifer is a bit smaller. And so with all the extra pumping, there was damage to it. Could there potentially be damage to ours? I don't know. But all I know is that we often take these systems for granted. We often take the aquifer and these wells for granted. The reality is that there could be some impacts. We may be drawing, you know, there's some areas where we know we have contamination and there may be some nearby issues. It may be the pumpage might draw some things in that we hadn't really considered. All I know is that just when you think things are fine and getting better, or you assume that things are in a certain state, with respect to water, there's so much unknown. So it's important to continue to keep this on the agenda. You heard Laurie Rosala at one of our previous meetings talking about the need to periodically shut down the wells so that they can rest. And then you could sort of allow the system to sort of heal itself. That should tell you something right there. Because if the demand continues at the same pace that it does, then, you know, we're sort of in a risky area, you know? So that's why I think it's important. And I think even talking about measures that need to be taken for better enforcement, at least beginning that discussion that night, you know, I think would be a very productive thing to do.
Okay. So we're going to go to the consent agenda.
We have the Garden Club requesting their collection at the landfill September 24 and 25th. We also have a Cape Liberty fundraiser on September 10 for special entertainment and special alcohol license 12 to 5 p.m. That's at 34 Arlington Street. And department donations of $250 to the fire department.
Bob, what is the Cape Liberty fundraiser? Do you have any idea what that is?
What I'm not sure of is what the Cape Liberty organization is.
Right.
The event, I have a better
This
handle.
person had come in before and we actually, I believe, had a hearing on it and then the event got canceled because of COVID.
Yes, yeah, there was a statement to that
And
effect.
this is 2 years later. We did get an email from Chris Greeley expressing concern about parking. I believe it came in today.
Yes, I actually contacted the proponent of the event, which again, it was the reason this wound up on the consent agenda. It was a reschedule from approximately a year ago. And the parking plan is indicated that there is on Arlington Street, some on-street parking in that section of it that is legal. And also they have neighbors who have donated 10 parking spaces on property that they have off the street, and any overflow they had proposed for Bayview Beach, so that the traffic will not be impeded because, it's a busy area.
Yeah, I wish I could remember and answer your question about what, but I think it was a nonprofit, some kind of a nonprofit organization. The board approved it. It was a fairly simple matter when it came before us. I wish I could remember what the organization was specifically, but I can't.
Again, I'm not negative. I just wondering what they did and what
Yeah.
they're fundraising for. And parking down there is tight.
I know. So they're telling you, Bob, that they got some dedicated parking spaces from neighbors, approximately 10. There is some on-street parking and they're gonna use the beach parking lot as well.
It's for the overflow, yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll work. Do you have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that passes unanimously, which brings us to the highlight event of the night, town administrator updates.
Well, I do have a couple of items I wanted to follow up on. We spent a great deal of time at your last meeting going through all of the various state revolving fund applications that the board had approved and authorized us to file. I just wanted to confirm with the board that as of last Friday, which was August 12, the deadline for the submission, we had successfully submitted all of the SRF applications. And that was, quite a piece of work from everyone involved, the DPW, the consultants. We coordinated all of that and made sure all of the information was in. And obviously, the big hitter there is our wastewater project. So major milestone in that project with the SRF application has been submitted. Now our next steps are to follow up with any questions, requests for information, anything that they might need. They go through a detailed evaluation process. And then the DEP publishes it's the intended use plan that they call the IUP. And those are the projects that make the funding list. And we received a report at the Wastewater Resources Advisory Committee last night just from, we had all of the consultants on board and, they were asked about where they saw our projects generally. And I think the idea is based on the criteria that's published, that's used to score these projects, that the town of Yarmouth projects, most notably the wastewater project, should score very high. So that's what we're anticipating, but we're going to have to see what goes on in the process. I know that program is very competitive these days. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of projects. So, but that was a big milestone, and that's done.
I've got a question on that one, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, Bob, if it could be possible to put together a brief notice or a news update on our website and blast it out to social media, because I think this is a huge milestone for the town in terms of submitting funding applications, particularly for the wastewater components. I think that should be stressed, but then I would probably make at least some mention of the other applications. But what were there, 7 or 8 SRF applications?
A lot of them.
Right, at least. Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, as a
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question too, Bob, when do you expect to hear? Do you hear it all at once, or each one you get an answer on? And
well, it's
timing?
interesting. That's a great question, because it may come out in a couple of chunks, because the way the SRF program works is that we file under the clean water section for all of the wastewater related ones, and we file under the water supply for the water ones. And there's an independent review for the clean water side and the water side, and we've got a few on the water side, especially the ones that are being converted to all grant funding, like the lead abatement. And so we may get them slightly differently, but I think that their deadline, they publish by January, what that list is. So we should have that finalized this year and know who's on the IUP.
If there's items missing in the application, or they've got questions, they'll get back to you. Is that how it works?
Yes.
I'm sure nothing's missing, but they may.
I know. And, they were pretty detailed proposals. And if they have questions, the key is that we got the application in on time, and they've acknowledged that. Now they go through those, and, they could ask us for more information, which we would, respond with. And there was another milestone that I might mention that we talked about last evening that was reached is we've also submitted to the MEPA, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act unit in DE, Department of Environmental Resources, the environmental impact report for the comprehensive wastewater management plan. Now that's a key thing. The environmental permitting is a critical piece of the overall permitting for the project.
When's the comment period on that expire?
And
Do you know?
they get a 30-day comment period. So for the next 30 days, people can submit their comments. And
I would say that's another significant milestone that probably should be part of a news item as
Right.
well.
And in terms of communication, I think, maybe on the website, we should just have a wastewater and water section and list the milestones. And, obviously one of the very first milestones that we've done is everything was voted. We signed the bond tonight, so things are moving forward. And I think these are all positives. And if we do get all the funding, I think that's a nice pat on the back, and, that could be worth, maybe maybe a point for you.
Yeah, there you go.
We're gonna get
That'll
working
boost
on
you.
that tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would agree with that. I think it's good to have a wastewater section, and I think we do. But I do think on the news items, just right there, right on your face, right up there, town advances wastewater project or
Okay,
something.
yeah.
And then, yeah, I think there's a tendency sometimes for us to get so busy in the things that we're doing that we forget periodically to tell the rest of the community what we're up to. And I think that's like I said, these are all important milestones. Because what happens is if we're not talking about them and pushing it out there, no one knows, other than maybe Kurt. members of the Water Resources Advisory Committee.
Right.
And a handful of folks in town hall. But other than that, that's it. And I think one of the problems that we've had in the past is just not communicating what we're doing on so many things, but particularly this. This is an area we just can't fall short on. So just, my usual pet peeve on news and announcements.
So special thanks to the RAC on everything that they're doing on that. I wanted to give you just a brief affordable housing update too from our Affordable Housing Trust. Had a meeting just this afternoon, and Mark Forrest, thank you very much. He's our new Selectmen's representative on that, and he brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. And I'm happy to report that we approved, I think, a very nice project for the town that is for 7 affordable home ownership opportunity units that are going to be built by the Habitat for Humanity in conjunction with the request for proposals that we initiated. And it's going to be on a parcel of land sort of behind Route 28, almost across from the town hall, that is it's already permitted for 9 units of housing. And we managed to work with the Habitat for Humanity that's going to be purchasing those from the owner and developing them, and I think in a way that is much more beneficial to the town than we might have seen under the original permits. And there's, some additional permitting that they have to do to get it transferred. But it's a project that we've been working on that I think is very significant. It's a small project. It's not right out on 28, but it's in the back in conjunction with, there's a mixed use development there that is been redeveloped, that you see him working on that building in the front of the property. So it'll be probably a few months while we work out the details of the agreements and things, and then Habitat has their process that I just think it's a great process. They involve sweat equity and volunteer labor, and the homes that they're building, very attractive units that will go to more than likely some local folks through our lottery process. And so I'm very happy to kind of give you an update on that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the goals that congratulate the Board of Selectmen once again on your goal-setting retreat and workshop process. And I wanted to give you a status report on where we stand with that process. Obviously, we did a lot of work up on the big poster boards and, the scoring and everything. And so we rolled them all up, and then I took them and squirreled away in the back office and prepared a draft that lists the Board of Selectmen's highest priority goals, some of the other goals that weren't the top priority but were mentioned, as well as the analysis of the strengths and weakness, opportunities and trends. And so I'm distributing these to the board because I think it's so important when, things are so general on the big poster boards. It looks a lot different when it's reduced in writing. And what I'd like to have is board members review the detail of the draft and make sure, what we want to ensure is that it completely reflects the priorities of the board, and that maybe at the next meeting, we'll acknowledge those publicly. And as soon as the board is comfortable with them, what I'd like to do is really make those goals my central focus in terms of working with the departments. We talked a little bit about some of the projects, like the local comprehensive plan is one of our key goals, to develop action plans around these specific goal items, work with the departments to do that and feed that back to the Board of Selectmen. But the key thing is to make sure the Board of Selectmen is comfortable with how the draft looks, how everything shakes out, and then we'll push that out publicly. We'll have a lot of publicity around it with the website. But for me, one of the most important things is to use that. And we've sort of been waiting for this, to have that tool to engage the staff and be able to, let folks know that, look, these are the priorities, this is what we're working on, and this is the action plan kind of item. And it dovetails into a lot of the other types of things we're working with, like with Bill, for example, on helping improve our overall project management strengths across the board. So very happy to work on that. And if you see anything in the draft goals that you think is a little different from what your understanding at the session was, bring it up and I'll put that information together and, any tweaks we have to make, what I'd like to do is make those tweaks and then start working on that action plan stuff as soon as we can. So that's the goals. And another quick thing, I don't want to take too much time, but I just think it's important to keep everybody apprised of what's going on in these different issues. And, we still have this debacle with the Solar Wolf Company that so many people in our town sought to have the, energy generation on their rooftops, and this company fell down. And, the truth is they were really the weak link in what was otherwise a fairly strong program that involved sun power, a high quality manufacture of the solar panels. And one of the most recent steps I've taken, we've been really racking our brains on trying to work with the state. We sent out a letter that was jointly, from a lot of the state officials to the folks that were contracted under that program to keep them up to date. And I had a meeting last week with the Clean Energy Center up in Boston that was the sponsor of this Solarize Massachusetts program that really let us down. And I'm kind of happy to report that the Clean Energy Center has agreed to work with us holistically on a program to, at this point, what we're trying to do is identify and put into place an alternative contractor that can, if there are residents in town that are still willing to work with the programs that we put together and still want to see that local solar energy on their roofs, to be able to take those contracts from where they stand now and move them into the production phase. And it's not without complications. It entails working with NSTAR for the interconnection agreements and working with the building departments for all the permits that are required. And it's going to require, us getting the best deal that we can on those high quality panels. We have not isolated funds to replace the money that was taken by the Solar Wolf Company. But what we're working on right now is, we've got the audit kind of the program done, and we're working on some alternatives for folks. And there are a lot of people that have had partial installations, and those folks or have the building permits, have the interconnection agreements, and they all have a time frame, that they work under. So if we can provide those alternatives, that may just help us. If we can shrink the number of people that have been negatively impacted by the problem, it just makes it easier to work with. And it's one of those things that having the assistance of the state to negotiate those power agreements on terms that local officials couldn't, it's helpful. So that's just the latest. Yes, sir.
Do we have any representatives at the folks bankruptcy court in hearings?
We do not.
We should, because if the owners of the company have any assets, we should bleed them dry as best we can in the bankruptcy court.
And there's issues there.
Well, we can't represent
That's one of the problems. The
other
town.
people.
Yeah, no, actually, Mike, you're absolutely correct. It's the individuals, but I would hope that there would be some representation, at least from some group to make sure that the best interests are being held, because
Well, they appoint a trustee,
there is a trustee there.
and then they have to. You have to
Yeah.
have a trustee in
I don't think that
bankruptcy.
they've done
And
that
then
yet.
that trustee can do different things depending on their assessment of situations. They can file different motions, and they can ask the bankruptcy court for permission to do certain things. But You know, bankruptcy laws, I haven't done bankruptcy work in many years, but I did when I first practiced. And I mean, it's a creature unto itself. It's federal courts have exclusive jurisdiction over it. You got to go by different, certain rules, certain procedures. And, you know, it matters whether there's a security interest in the collateral or not. In terms of priority claims, obviously the government, if there's taxes owed, they're first in line. You know, there's a whole
No, I'm-
complex system that has to be followed. But they do appoint a trustee in bankruptcy to kind of handle the situation, find out what the claims are, find out who the secured creditors are, who the secured creditors are not. But individuals that want to be represented have to get their own counsel.
No, you're absolutely correct. I misspoke. But, you know, I would hope that some of the individuals are having representation there, because not knowing, I believe that there was fraud involved, because especially the way the contracts were written, that there was so much money up front. And my guess is there's been diversion of funds that went to Solar Wolf, and because they clearly weren't paying their supplier, because it was the supplier was cutting them off, and that's why they filed bankruptcy.
There's always that issue that comes up in bankruptcy. Again, I haven't done that work in a lot of years, but at least when I did do it, fraudulent claims that may not be dischargeable.
Correct.
But on a factual level, whether somebody is committing fraud or not, there's always a scenario where they're not paying people. That's why they're in bankruptcy. And sometimes it's because of malfeasance, fraudulent conduct, and sometimes it's bad business decisions. If somebody's a spendthrift, they're spending business assets on a personal level, which they should be keeping separate and stuff like that. But the bankruptcy court, have they actually filed? Do we know that?
We do not have a filing, a number. So I think that, you know, they're lawyered up with attorneys, but they're preparing their filing. And, you know, I just want to say also, we've worked hand in glove with our town council since the start of this. And, you know, I personally have been extremely frustrated with the information I get on what the town's legal limitations are on specific actions we can take. I've been much more hawkish on this, and but we're being guided with good legal advice. And the one thing that we have done, we've spent a tremendous amount of time researching information and providing that information to the State Attorney General's office, along with our feelings very clearly, that, you know, we feel that there was fraud on behalf of the Solar Wolf Company, and that the State Attorney General's office is in a position to evaluate that. And we're hoping to take the legal action that we can't take, because we're told, you know, that we don't have any privity in the actual contracts, but we have all of the information. We've been working with the legislative delegation, the state agencies, the Attorney General's office, and we have advised, and I know it makes people, you know, a little uncomfortable, because they would have been more comfortable if the town was able to just represent them en masse. And you know, that would be an easy thing for them, but
Right.
we've advised them on some avenues to seek, whether it's low cost legal assistance, to make sure that they file the legal claims that are necessary to file, so they can hopefully protect and.
No, I do understand the town's lack of standing.
It's called standing. If some misconduct or malfeasance was directed against the town, then the town could come and intervene. But as it's been directed toward private parties, town doesn't represent private parties.
I understand. But you know,
It's not that we wouldn't want to.
Right.
They throw us out of court.
no, I understand the lack of standing issue and stuff. So.
But the frustration,
I know,
you know,
it's very
I can hear
frustrating.
it, and it's definitely shared. And I just want to make the board aware is that we're still investigating any possible actions that we can take. And, you know, starts with getting a lasso around the whole issue, developing all of that data on every contract, finding out where things are, then working with these state agencies, try to put together as much as we can in terms of an alternative contract to help people out. And then if we can hone it down to the issues of the money, maybe try to do everything we can to assist in, helping people retrieve their money, finding out if there's any additional resources that can be used for that. But just so you know, I know the board was real interested, and it's a difficult situation, but I just want to let you know that
Yeah, I think
still
what
a
you're
lot going on.
doing is the best you can do, and that is to assist in getting information to the Attorney General's office. I think that's the best thing we can do right now.
So that's all I had for tonight.
Okay, anything else? We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. So, on the evaluation forms, we get those out in the fly tomorrow, maybe?
Can you send those out to